nice. Damn. Okay, we are now live. And then I just click stop broadcast and that'll cut it.
Yep.
All right, cool. All right.
All right.
Here we go. Ready, ready when you are then.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Tosche Station, the Young Folks' official Star Wars podcast, where Han shot first, always shot first, and we talk about the galaxy far, far away. We're your hosts. I'm Jordan Decker.
And I'm Alex Suffolk, and we got a good show for you today. A couple of diverse pieces of material. We're going to talk about the Han Solo movie. We're going to talk about some video games. And then since it's the Thanksgiving season, we're going to have a little special something about what we're thankful for in the realm of Star Wars, specifically scenes, I believe, is what we decided to do. So let's start the show, Jordan. What do you say? Let's jump right in it.
I was going to say I'm grateful for turkey, but damn it, that's not a scene.
What do you think the Star Wars equivalent of turkey is?
Oh, that's a topic for a whole other podcast. We got.
Is it Ewok?
Oh,
I'm trying to think of like small creatures that one might eat in the Star Wars universe, and there's the only ones I could think of.
I feel like a family of 6-ish could eat one Ewok and have a pretty good meal.
I think they're relatively turkey-sized, or maybe a Jawa.
I'm never going to be able to watch Return of the Jedi the same way again. All right. So starting right off, we're not a TMZ podcast. We're not assholes. We don't gossip a lot, but we would be remiss if we didn't quickly mention, talk about our thoughts about the little Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher affair that was revealed. Carrie Fisher did an interview or something, and she said that way back in 1977 when they were filming the original Star Wars, her and Harrison Ford had an actual fling. She was 19 years old. He was 33 and married and had kids. So yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't like it. I think it's a no. That's a 14-year age difference. Also, you don't cheat on people. That's screwed up. I think you should be like John Boyega and Daisy Ridley. If you're playing romantic opposites, you gotta be platonic. I mean, if they got together, it would be more normal too, because they're similar ages. But Alex, what do you think of our TMZ segment news?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, as Tosche Station, we should talk about like the personal lives of the actors and people involved every once in a while. But usually when it's more contained to Star Wars. But I think people were buzzing about this, so it's worth bringing up. Unlike you, I don't like it either. It is kind of scummy. Like, I don't know. The information's not out, like who seduced who or who proposed what to who or whatever. But like either way, they're a little responsible for something that's, like we don't know their minds. We don't know what they were going through at the time. But still, it's like, Harrison Ford, it should have been a little more responsible, I think, if you have, a wife and children. And, I kind of feel bad for Carrie Fisher. Like, the more that she reveals about her life, specifically with her time filming Star Wars, the more you just find out she had some really, like, troubled times throughout her life. So it just goes to show that, like, the people who make Star Wars, like, we glamorize them and we associate them so deeply with the characters, but they're real people in the real world with real lives. And sometimes it's not always as glamorous as it is in the movies. So it was a little sad to hear about this. That's about it.
Yeah, it also made me remember that thing where she said, how am I going to wear underwear with this costume or something? And George Lucas said, you don't wear underwear. There's no underwear in space.
Yeah, it was her bra underneath the in A New Hope, underneath her white dress. That's why if you watch, she's kind of like just out there under the dress, because George Lucas just said, no, you don't need it.
Yeah, and then she wore the metal bikini. I mean, I don't think the whole production was a sexist ploy against Carrie Fisher necessarily, but yeah, I do hope, and I definitely think that kind of stuff is not going to be able to happen really under the Disney stuff. It's not, when Star Wars was first being made, it was sort of just an indie film back then in 77, but these are massive films now. So, I think Daisy Ridley will be fine.
Yeah, I think making Star Wars, it's less turbulent time. Actually, I don't know. Given certain political events, maybe it's still as turbulent as it was back then. but in a different way. So let's hope all the Star Wars actors continue to have, better lives, I
Yes.
guess.
You stay classy, San Diego, or planet Earth.
Or Alderaan, I guess. Whatever. Um, so to some fun news. You know what are fun? Video games. Video games are fun. That's my transition. How do you like it?
Excellent.
So for Star Wars Battlefront, if you may remember us talking about the EA shooter, not to be confused with the Star Wars Battlefronts of the same name from like a decade ago at this point. So there was two big reveals. One is that Battlefront 2 will be released in 2017 to come out right before Episode 8. And then more immediate news coming out soon is the fourth DLC expansion for the first Battlefront, and it is going to be Rogue One Scarif. So it releases on December 6th. You can play as Jyn Erso and Orson Krennic as the hero characters. It takes place on the tropical planet that we see with the AT-ATs on the beach. And now we know it's called Scarif. And so this is kind of cool. Like I remember we lost an episode of Tosche Station last time we did this, but we were talking about like, oh, new DLC for Battlefront 2. Are they gonna have Rogue One stuff? Well, it turns out not for Battlefront 2 and Battlefront 1, because here it is. It's the fourth final expansion, which EA kind of kept under wraps for a little bit. So yeah, Jordan, what do you think about playing in Rogue One for this upcoming DLC?
It's cool, but I probably won't get it. I was actually just at my sister and her boyfriend's place in Portland, and they have the game and all the latest DLC up until the Death Star one. And I played it all, and I had a really good time. But these days, being in college, trying to afford a normal life, I didn't pay for all the DLC. So I don't know if I'm about to pay the whatever $15 and catch up now. That being said, I'll wait to see if it gets really good buzz. Battlefront 2, which we mentioned, is a different story. So yeah, I'll have an open mind. I do think it's very cool that they are tying it into Rogue One, because that makes it feel very immediate. We were talking about maybe the sequel game could focus on stuff closer to Force Awakens timeline, and this being a Rogue One release, it makes sense because it fits with the Battlefront 1 stuff, all the New Hope timeline. Rogue One leads right up into New Hope, so it's gonna make sense altogether, like a cohesive whole. One thing I was wondering, do you think that you're gonna be able to play as Death Troopers, Alex?
So my answer is yes, sometimes. Specifically because it's been released that the hero character you can play as for the Empire is Orson Krennic. And as it is right now in Battlefront, if you control the Emperor, one of the cool things about him is that other players spawn as his like bodyguards.
Yes.
So I would assume that when you're Krennic, it'd sort of be the same. They just adopt the same thing where two people can spawn in as Death Troopers, and they're basically like stormtroopers, but they have the black masks, and they're extra powerful because they spawn and follow Krennic around. And I imagine to balance it, Jyn Erso might have the same thing. She'd basically be like a reskinned Leia, I suppose, because that's what Leia does too. She has her bodyguards. She has a blaster. So I do think Death Troopers, yes. If they're not like a skin for the regular guy, then I assume they'll be like tied to Krennic in some way. I'm also curious how he's going to play. He doesn't strike me as a guy who picks up a gun himself. I wonder if he has his big flowy like white cape like he does in the trailers in the game. That'd be pretty badass. You're just like walking around.
It's getting like water and mud on it and stuff, trailing behind.
It's just like flowing. Whenever like Luke Force pushes you, it like flaps in the wind majestically. So I think that'll be cool. The one thing that strikes me about this DLC announcement, though, is that I really feel like it should have been announced earlier. Like, I don't know about you. Like, I heard it and I was like, oh, that's cool. I don't really play Battlefront anymore, though. Like, I feel like it's been so long since the first game, and there's so many games out right now. Battlefield 1, which is like the other EA title, it's almost, and then like Titanfall 2 is coming out soon. It's almost like EA is like cannibalizing on itself. And then like Dishonored 2 is coming out. All these other games coming out on the other horizon. My thoughts aren't really on Battlefront right now, but I think they could have announced this like right after that last trailer dropped, because that last trailer, people were so hyped for Rogue One. Like that was the time you could be like, oh, you like Rogue One? Well, guess what? You could be in it this, this winter. I think that would have been the optimal time to announce it, but that's just me.
Yeah, I agree. It makes me wonder what it was like behind the scenes. Possibly they were wrangling together the deal or actually genuinely finishing the map, like making sure all the details were right and there was no
Yeah.
glitches. Maybe there was some game ending glitch where the Empire just dropped the Death Star plans on the ground or something like
Glitch.
yeah, glitch. That's it. Official canon. They just drop it on the ground. There's no mission.
Oops. What if that's how it ends? Like, or that's how it happens? Like, Galen like looks back and sees Jyn Erso and just like drops his like crumpled post-it notes.
Honestly, though, that's what happens in Return of the Jedi because the Empire wants the plans to get taken, so he probably dropped it on the ground.
Just crumpled. There you go.
Do you think it would be cool if you could play as K2SO being Jyn Erso's bodyguard?
Yes. I actually,
Yes.
well, because they usually spawn two bodyguards, so I'm wondering who'd be the second one, or there'll just be two K2SOs. Either way, I'm happy with it. That would be cool. I'd like to play as just K2SO as like his own hero character and just like rip people apart as a big robot. I don't know
Yep.
if that's what I don't know if that's what he does, but I assume that's what he does, and that's what I hope what he does.
Mhm. Yeah, or
So,
have Chirrut Imwe be playable and like he goes up against one of the other characters with a lightsaber, and for whatever reason, his stick is like just as powerful as a lightsaber, and they never explain it.
yeah. Well, like when you pick him, actually your screen goes black, and yet somehow whenever you push whenever you push a button, you kill somebody.
It's total immersion.
You just mash the X button and then like you rack up kills even though you have no idea what's going on. It just says like across the screen it just says trust the force and then you go for it.
That reminds me a lot of this fake thing online my buddy sent me, and I fucking fell for it. It just said, like Ubisoft announces first-person Daredevil game, and I clicked it, and it's just a black screen with sound effects. I was like, you got me.
That's good. That's a good one.
But yeah, we'll see about that. Moving right along, Alex, are you aware that a Han Solo movie is coming out soon?
What?
What? Yeah. We jokingly call it the Han Solo movie because I mean that's not even a joke. That's just what it is. Sometimes they add a few more solos there onto the end. We have a bit of casting for that film because, like Alex was saying, we lost a podcast, but in there we talked about Donald Glover as Lando, and the newest casting is Emilia Clarke. That's right, everybody's favorite, or a lot of people's favorite character from Game of Thrones, and she's playing somebody. We don't know who yet. We'll see. Lucasfilm says Clark's role will round out a dynamic cast of characters that Han and Chewie will encounter on their adventures. Alex, what do you think of Donald Glover briefly, but mostly Emilia Clarke?
Okay, so there's a lot of things. For one thing, they suddenly confirmed Chewie was in this. I don't know if it was 100% confirmed, but there it is. Chewie. Awesome. And so Donald Glover, as you said, we talked about him a bit before. Let's talk a little bit now. I'm excited. I think he's great. I think he was sort of like a fan casting, but I think that's a one-time like fan casting gets it right. He has great charisma, and he's come really far as an actor. Like if you don't remember, he started doing like YouTube videos like 10 years ago with the College Humor, and now he's in Star Wars. So good for him. So Emilia Clarke, which is like the biggest part of this story. I love Game of Thrones. I love all like the crossing of Game of Thrones actors to now Star Wars. That's cool. I can get behind that. At the same time, though, I'm really wondering if she got the role that a lot of African American actresses were going for. Because if so, that's a little problematic, especially if they come out and say she's Sana Solo. Because Sana is a black character, and that would be literal whitewashing. And I don't know if Disney wants to do that. So, and then at the same time, like while I love Emilia Clarke in Game of Thrones, Terminator Genesis wasn't that good, and she's not always the strongest. So it would be kind of a shame if other actresses really tried out for this role and they went with her just because of like her star power because of Game of Thrones. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also, a little wondering how she got the role and what that role will be like, if she will execute it like she does in Game of Thrones, or if it will be more of a Terminator situation. So I don't know. How do you feel?
Um, I really don't. If Sana's in the movie, I don't think she's gonna be Sana because, you're right. That whitewashing thing would be a real mess up these days with PC culture and the internet. You don't figure they would make this new movie just blatantly go against being progressive and whitewash like that. So I do think it's probably a different character. But if San is still in it, I really hope also that it's not just another love interest for Han. Because we were talking many podcasts ago about the Han Solo movie in general, and my tentativeness is in giving Han love interests because I do think that it makes sense that he would have something. I just don't want it to be implied that Han is just constantly having girlfriends all the time and that like he's devoted to this one and then he's devoted to this one or he thinks this one's great because I just for me maybe it's my selfish fanness of me, but I want him to be with Leia. I think Leia's his soulmate that he eventually finds, and everything else should just be like a few things here and there. So especially not two love interests. Like I wouldn't want that in this movie. I kind of hope that Emilia Clarke is something else to him entirely. Whether she's an antagonist, that would be cool to have a cool, strong female antagonist. She's kind of already there in Game of Thrones in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then, my other thought was, we haven't really talked about the fact that we're hopefully seeing Han's family in this, or at least something of them. Maybe Han has a badass older sister or something like that. Maybe somebody dies in my head, like somebody in Han's family is gonna die or something, and like give him his blaster on their deathbed. Something that like motivates him forever, but allows them to still not be in the original trilogy. Really, yeah. What do you think of that? Like, if she's not a love interest, what might you want her to be?
You said antagonist, and I had never even considered that, but I'm leaning towards that. I think that'd be really cool. Like as it is, I just realized we know nothing of the Han Solo solo film villain. The Han Solo. Well, we don't know who the antagonist of that movie is. Like we have no idea what the plot's going to be, and so I assumed she'd be like another hero. I thought like for like from what she was saying, like from the quote, that like it'll round out like all these people they encounter. It gave me sort of like this like Ocean's 11 vibe, like and we'll talk about it a bit later with like the heist movie comments. But like I thought like they were like building a team, almost like a little bit like Magnificent Seven. I think a lot of people are doing team building movies these days. So I thought she was like another one, like another personality to join the team. But I'd actually really like to see her as an antagonist. I think it'd be interesting to have like sort of like with Captain Phasma, but like do it right. Have like a good like female villain in Star Wars. I don't think we've really had that, especially if she's like the sole antagonist. Like Phasma is sort of more or less a sidekick to like or an underling to Hux and Kylo. So I think having like a powerful female villain would be interesting. And I think like you're right. She's depending on your stance on Daenerys, she's sort of a villain at this point, or she's the hero, depending on how you feel about her. But she tends to lean more towards hero. So I think this would be like the first real like villain role for Emilia Clarke, and I'd be interested in that. So my vote and hope is for villain.
Yeah, it really, speaking of that, it speaks to the quality of Game of Thrones in its writing that she's like used her dragons to like burn innocent people alive, and we're still like, well, I mean, she's not a villain. I mean,
Yeah.
they do like the first episode had somebody pushing a 10-year-old kid out of a window, and they made him likable later in the show. So anything's possible. Um, yeah, I think the villain would be cool. They also there's probably going to be a sequel to this and a sequel to that. Like this is they just cast like a new bunch of people to play Lando, to play Han, and I'm getting kind of a Spider-Man casting feel. Like they're tying them down for multiple movies. They're planning out the long game. So maybe Lando's the main villain in this, and she sort of comes up after that, or it's flipped, and Lando takes on a bigger role in sequels. I'd be down for any of that. Anything with Han and Chewie and all those people, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be watching it.
Yeah, I like that. Again, I never even thought of Lando being the villain. You're killing it with these villain theories because
Hmm.
I just assume Han's friends with everybody except like Jabba the Hutt and the Empire. But I'd prefer seeing him like go like head to head with like another scoundrel, and it's not really like good guy versus bad guy as it is like two people trying to out scheme each other.
Yep.
That'd be different for a Star Wars movie, so I dig it. So, the other big quote that we know about the Solo movie is that Kennedy told Variety magazine that she felt that the Han Solo movie is closer to a heist or a Western type feel. She said that they're also, for inspiration for the movie, they're looking at the paintings of Frederick Remington. And he's, if you don't know him, he's an artist who really specializes in depicting the Old West in these beautiful looking paintings. They're looking at the colors used by the artist, and they're specifically looking at his aesthetic, and they're saying that that is going to be the defining look and feel of the film. So, personally, Jordan, I feel like they kind of describe every Star Wars movie as a Western these days. But what else do you take away from that quote?
Not really anything. I'm with you. That was actually what I was gonna say. Was I heard this quote and I was like, great, like, sure, it's a western, but it's gonna be in the Star Wars universe with Star Wars characters talking about Star Wars themes, and like, I just don't. I think yeah, it's thrown around a lot. The western's kind of hot right now. Westworld,
Mm.
Magnificent Seven did really well, and um, I think why people say that is not so much that they're trying to channel tropes of the genre. It's more that the lawlessness of the galaxy far, far away, which basically switches governments every 10 minutes, um, that allows for conflicts similar to a Western. Like that,
Mm.
the Western is a place that is interesting because it's being settled. It's a frontier. There's not cops everywhere necessarily yet. There's people walking around with revolvers, and um, when Han shoots Greedo in the cantina, it's sort of a Western situation because he's not going to get arrested really. The Empire's just occupying a planet in the middle of nowhere. I think that's what it means. If stuff starts coming out of the like trailers for the movie, and I see a comparison to one of those paintings, and it's like, wow, Corellia is straight up the Old West. Like, then I'll change my tune. But until then, yeah, I'm with you.
I kind of hope that Corellia isn't just like the Old West though, because then it just will be like another Tatooine. Like that was my
Yep.
big problem with Jakku, is that let's be honest, it was another Tatooine. So I like when I hear Corellia, I think more of like the Naboo, Alderaan, watery, foresty type planet. That's what I'm
Mhm.
hoping for, or maybe something completely crazy. I hope they blow our minds with it.
I
Um,
picture like a urban underworld kind of thing. I don't know why that's appealing to me, but
mm,
like something a little bit like Coruscant, but maybe Han grows up in a really bad place. Maybe he's sort of like Aladdin. Like I picture him like Aladdin, like he's like stealing then before he becomes an actual smuggler.
mm, okay. I can see that. If you look at the art of the Force Awakens, some of the original concept art for Jakku was sort of like that. It was more of like a cyberpunk, kind of like Coruscant, but like a little less crazy. It was sort of like on a waterfront. It was a little swampy. I can get behind that. I think that'd be a good fit for Han Solo. Um, well, the other thing I was thinking about with the Western comparison is that I think it's all the more obvious because Han Solo himself is probably the most Western of all the Star Wars characters. Like, if you think about it, he is a bounty hunter dodging, saloon visiting, outlaw, gunslinger. Like, everything about him, he's got like the holster with like the 6-shooter, he's got like the leather vest, he's got boots, he rides off onto the sunset. Like, I feel like he is a cowboy more than any other character in Star Wars.
Chewie is
So,
his horse.
Chewie, I was going to say like his Tonto, but I guess horse is better. He rides him into combat. Oh God. Somebody draw that. I think that'd be funny. Uh, if we have artists out there, come on, draw. Actually, I don't know. Maybe not.
I'll just draw it
Anyway,
with like stick figures and no artistic ability.
yeah, it'll just be like two stick figures, one with a gun, another one looking like a hairy stick figure, like a
Yeah.
stick figure with more lines coming out of it. That's our talent of art. Um, Anyway, the other thing I found more interesting about this quote was not the Western bit, but the heist bit. I kind of mentioned it before, but like I think that gave us sort of a clue as to what's actually happening with this movie, which again we don't really know much about. So I think heist makes sense. I think someone like cracks like this crazy plan and gathers like these rogues together, or they go on some adventure to get this thing because they're rogues and that's what they do. And so I got kind of like an Ocean's 11 feel to it. I was wondering if maybe Han and Chewie are like assembling a team, and that's why there's Lando, and that's why there's Emilia Clarke's character, and maybe like the other role they're still casting for with the African American female lead, maybe that's still a different role, and she's also part of the team. So that could be cool. So yeah, that's what I gleaned from it, is that the movie is sort of going in like an Ocean's 11Z direction. What do you think about that?
It's a crazy circle because Star Wars was based on Kurosawa. Kurosawa made Seven Samurai. Magnificent Seven was based on Seven Samurai. And now they're like saying that Rogue One is Magnificent Seven, but in space. And it's just a big circle of references. There was even an episode of Clone Wars, the really, really great Star Wars animated show, that was also the Magnificent Seven. And it said in loving memory of Akira Kurosawa after the episode. Anakin and Obi-Wan go to a village and they're getting assaulted by some sort of gang that's wanting them to pay money just to exist. And they train them to fight back. And it's, yeah, yes. lots of homage these days.
Yeah, I feel like there's a big blend between westerns, samurai films, and sci-fi, and I think it's like what you said about the frontier. And I think that's always like a really good setting because morality is vague. It doesn't have like a lot of like social implications and social structure that sort of impede and give sort of a stability. It's the instability of the frontier, I think, in all three of those genres that makes them all kind of blend together, and have similar themes.
I think why it bothers me when they reference it is just the fact that like Star Wars is its own thing now. It's not based on anything. It's just you can have any kind of movie in the Star Wars universe. And the Star Wars also has space wizards. And that's nothing like anything in Western. The whole force aspect, the whole spiritual aspect makes it very different. Alex, I wanted to ask you one thing about Han Solo. Just in general, with Han Solo and in prequels, do you think it's harder? Do you think they're fighting an uphill battle trying to make a story interesting, featuring characters that for the most part we know are going to live after it's done?
You mean like there's like, you think there's gonna be like less tension because we know what happens?
Or maybe I'm just asking like as an open-ended question.
You know, like, because like when they started with the prequels, we already kind of knew what was going to happen. We knew Anakin was going to become a Jedi. He was going to be powerful. He was going to turn into the dark side, become Darth Vader, and like the Empire is going to happen. So like we still kind of knew what happened, and the beauty with the prequels is like the mystery of how it's going to unfold. So like there's a danger in that, like if you don't do it right, people aren't going to care because they know how it ends. But if you do it correctly, people love it because it's satisfying that like the mystery that they've already sort of wondered about with something they know is being fulfilled. So it's trickier. It has its own like sets of trickiness to it, but if you pull it off, I think it works. So again, it's all an execution. It's all an execution with everything. Like the more I look into like people giving writing advice for whatever, it's always like originality is a dime a dozen. It's execution is everything.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was asking. I didn't want to like say what I thought right away necessarily, but I happen to agree with you. I think the knowledge that a character might get killed off is a one-trick pony kind of. It's you play that card and then it doesn't really mean much anymore. And I feel like Game of Thrones is a great example because it's a great show. It's great for many other reasons, but part of the reason I think it caught on at first was because people watched it and thought, "Oh my God, anybody can die at any second in this show. Therefore, I'm hooked. I don't know what's going to happen." But if characters just get wasted left and right, and it like they're being killed before their characters even reach like cool potential, that's bad in its own right. So Yeah, I think it's naive to say that like um that something can't be good just because you know that someone's gonna live. There's other ways to generate drama besides life and death. You know.
Yeah, like I said, it's all about how you do it. It's all about what you're going for and how well you do it. I think with Game of Thrones, what they do, like with the carrying the characters off, killing the characters off, carrying the characters off, killing the characters off, even when they don't always like fulfill their potential. I think that's like an instinct, like that was a an intentional execution of what George R. R. Martin was trying to do by saying that in war people die even when it's messed up and it's unsatisfying and it's unheroic, because that's how stuff is. I think Martin is always trying to juxtapose like the reality of medieval warfare with like the like a heroic fantasy that often is in medieval settings, and he executes that really well. However, I also think you're right. Some shows maybe it isn't always the best. Like a lot of people are upset with The Walking Dead and how they killed off characters. I think it's great, but I think what what people are saying is totally valid. And I think with Han Solo, we know he's gonna die, but I think they can still execute it in a way that there's still some tension and drama with what he's doing in his younger years. So
I mean, we know he's gonna die, but eventually, like
yeah,
he made it to 74 or whatever, like pretty good run. You could do a lot worse.
he lives a good life. It's all good.
And he died peacefully in his sleep.
Uh, mm.
You were about to agree with me before you knew that I was joking.
I was like, actually, kind of the opposite. Kind of the opposite. This is more like painfully and more awake than he probably ever wants to be.
His whole family by his side, wishing him well.
Okay.
All right. Good talk. Han Solo. Alex and I will be there probably at the midnight premiere. They do those 7 p.m. premieres now. You don't even have to go to midnight.
Oh yeah, I'm old. I got a job. I can't do those midnight things anymore.
Yeah, crazy kids. All right. So we are on to our holiday special right now. Not the Star Wars holiday special, which is a different thing.
We need to cover that. It is the season.
I've never seen it.
Oh man, I need to come visit you. I have it on DVD.
You do?
Yes, I do. Well, we will have a watching at some point. You
Okay.
can find it on YouTube. You can find it all over the place. But I got a pretty good copy. So
We gotta
just letting you
like
know.
get trashed and watch it. That would be a good time.
Oh, you need to watch it stone cold sober for your first time. It's an experience.
I know
You
about
have to take it in.
the 10-minute scene where it's just Ewoks grunting at each other with no subtitles. I know about that.
Oh, it's Wookiees. It's
Wookiees, yeah.
Chewbacca's family.
All right. So
no.
not that. That's what we're not doing now. Right now, we're doing a
Different holiday.
segment we just invented, and that's we wanted to talk about things we're grateful for. And specifically, this is a Star Wars podcast, obviously. So we're going to talk about 2 Star Wars scenes each that we're both grateful for above all others. Kind of like if you had to pluck 2 out of the bunch right now, which ones are you just so happy made their way into this franchise? So Alex, I'll ask you to kick it off, and then we'll just alternate. We'll go back and forth and talk about each other's picks. What's your first one?
All right, my first one. So what I'm thankful for is the scene in Return of the Jedi when Luke unmasks Vader, and they have that sort of that interlude. Specifically, the line "I need to save you," and Anakin, I guess at that point, looks at him and says, "You already have, son." And like I guess I just like that's just my gushy moment. Like that's of all the scenes in Star Wars, of all the lines, that one like always tugs at my heartstrings the most, which is probably why I'm the most thankful for it this Thanksgiving. Just like it's like the culmination of that father-son dynamic. Like you see when Darth Vader brings the reveal, and you're like, how can he be his father? How can this happen? How are they going to resolve this? Like it's going to end up in bloodshed and anger and rage, and yet it resolves in love and like the tenderness and like coming together. And that's sort of, and I'm thankful for it because like I'm glad Star Wars like ended with it saying it's not the violence and like shooting stuff down that wins the day, that wins in the end of the day in sort of a spiritual sense. It's coming together, it's being a better person, it's finding that redemption. And like Star Wars, like I think I've been sentimental about this before, but like Star Wars was introduced to me by my own dad. So like that's sort of like fatherly gleam that Anakin has in his eyes as he looks at Luke with his own eyes is like, ah, my dad, I should call you, but I don't. Yeah. So I'm thankful for that scene. I think it's really powerful, and it's a good way to Star Wars to like say this is what we're really about, and we're about love, and we're about life and the preservation and redemption of it rather than just cutting it off.
Yeah, I agree. I always think there's something kind of powerful in movies and in life in general about a bond between father and son, or mother and daughter, or mother and son, or brother and sister, um, that is so it's so powerful that it doesn't need any explanation. Like Luke and Vader,
Mm-hmm.
they have such a complex relationship that evolved since A New Hope, and they spend most of it trying to kill each other. But like, it doesn't matter that they haven't known each other their entire lives or anything, or that they've bonded. In that moment, all it means is that like, um, I'm sorry about everything. Like, I did all of this for you, son. I'm sorry that I went down this path. And and yeah, I mean, if you read the stuff after Return of the Jedi, the little bits of it we've had too, it's such an interesting scenario that that Luke and Leia were in after that, because most of the galaxy doesn't even know what who Anakin Skywalker became, but in
Mm-hmm.
Bloodline, that information gets revealed, and Leia has this conflict where she just like Luke tells her, "Hey, like I understand he was so evil in his lifetime, but trust me, in his last moments, he came back." And
Mm-hmm.
just seeing how they process that is really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. That family bond really is inherent. I like what you said about their relationship being so complex and complicated, but in the end, it was just simple. It was just, I love you, son. I love you, dad.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Exactly.
all right. So, what are
Great
you
pick.
thankful for, Jordan?
I also picked a scene from Return of the Jedi because recently I had a surgery, and I was really like pissed off about it. I had to stay overnight in the hospital, which I never had to do.
Mm-hmm.
That night after the surgery, this was just over the summer. Um, my mom was staying overnight in the hospital room with me. Um, I was sitting up in my bed, and I was, eating a little bit of food, whatever I was allowed to eat then. And the only thing I could do was watch TV. And we rewatched Return of the Jedi. My mom introduced me to Star Wars, and she hadn't seen Return of the Jedi for a while. I hadn't either. We popped in the VHS tape and we watched the whole thing. Um, and we both love Force Awakens a lot, a lot, a lot. And I was just struck by one moment that happens. The death of Yoda. Spoilers. um, he's talking to Luke, and it's when he's about to die, and he says, "Pass on what you have learned." And as he's fading out, he says, "Like, you're not alone. There is another Skywalker." And that moment to me, I'm saying I'm grateful for it right now, because even though they had no inkling whatsoever that this franchise was going to get a sequel franchise 30 years later, it feels like it was an intentional foreshadowing that Luke was going to train a new generation of Jedi, passing on what he's learned, and that there being another Skywalker is very important because Leia is going to have a child that will be incredibly important to the future of the Force. And I've always liked that Leia learns she has the Force, but she never really tries to harness it. She just goes on with her life because she's a great politician and she doesn't have time for all this goofy wizard stuff. But there, that line, "There is another Skywalker," is undoubtedly important. And in that moment, I realized that it feels important now. They've retroactively made it feel important in saying there is another Skywalker because your sister has this gene too, and her son is going to be the main antagonist of the 30 years later movie. That's what I noticed. It made me giddy. I was like, these movies work so well together now. Ooh.
Yeah, that is an amazing catch. Like I said, the great things, all the best things that are in A Force Awakens are the things that make the things in the original trailer retroactive, original trilogy, not trailer, retroactively better. And so I think that's an amazing. I didn't even put that together. I always thought that there's another Skywalker is just like, oh, Leia too. And I thought it was like, as a pessimistic writer, I can tell that's them setting up the tension later for Luke's fight with Vader, because Vader can uses that against Luke. However, with the introduction of the new trilogy, it's retroactively better. It is Luke saying, Yoda saying, the cycle is going to repeat itself. The Force is going to keep going. Go with it. Like you're instrumental in it progressing forward, and it's going to progress without you because there is another Skywalker.
Yeah, absolutely. It has a double meaning there now. So yeah, I thought that was pretty powerful upon repeat watching. I'm wondering what stuff will happen like that once we see Rogue One. What lines in A New Hope will be like hit at the heartstrings, that we didn't have before that.
Good point. Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna when I'm gonna watch Rogue One, it's just gonna be like analyzing everything. I'm gonna have like a headache by the end of it because I'm just like gonna be paying attention to every frame and every line, the dialogue, over analyzing the crap out of everything because I'm a nerd.
Yes.
So yeah. So my second scene that I am thankful for, I'm realizing it is the third death in a row that we're discussing. Also, probably like the complete contradiction to what I just said I was thankful for. Because instead of like a beautiful father and son relationship, my other thing I'm thankful for is the tragic one, and that is Han's death in The Force Awakens. That sounds maybe a little like cynical or morbid to be thankful for, but it's for different reasons. So I'm thankful that it was Disney saying we aren't afraid with these new movies to go darker. And to raise the stakes, to say these are a different type. This is a different type of story. It's a familiar story, but it's different. It's sort of a perversion of what you've seen before. Because a lot of people say that Episode 7 was fan service. It was really safe. It was really rehashed. But I think killing off Han was a really strong way for Disney to say, no, you aren't safe anymore. We're not just going to give you happy fun times with all your favorite people. This is the real world, and in the real world, people die, even people that you like. So I think I'm thankful that Disney is stuck to their guns with it. I'm also thankful that Han Solo, Harrison Ford has always gone on record saying that he wishes Han Solo had like a fit and an ending that was fit for the character, a really resolved character arc for him. And he wanted to die when he got put in the carbonite, but he kind of stuck around for Return of the Jedi. So I'm thankful that he finally got his impactful resolution to his character arc. So that's what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for, again, the cycle continuing and Star Wars showing that it's bigger than just Luke's adventures and Anakin's. It's because it's sort of sad in a way that despite that beautiful moment that that Luke has with Vader, that Kylo then has the opposite with Han. And so I'm thankful that Disney is moving forward. And I feel like that was the big signal to me that, yes, we truly are going into the future, not just reveling in the past. Although, quick runner-up to that, I'm thankful for the BB-8 thumbs up because it's the greatest GIF ever.
Aren't we all?
But what's your second thankful scene?
Oh, I just wanted to comment on yours real fast.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I totally agree. I think it's also, if you're comparing it to A New Hope and you're saying, oh, Force Awakens just plays it safe. Also, just remember when Obi-Wan dies, Obi-Wan, Han have a similar role in those films. Obi-Wan gets transported into a magical ghost and his robe falls down and it's not really consequential. He's cool with it. He's down to die at that moment. And then he comes back a couple minutes later. Han is not a Force user.
Yeah, Obi-Wan becomes more powerful than you can ever imagine. Han just straight up dies. He
just freaking falls to his death. And in Episode 8, we're presumably going to get there's rumors of a Viking type funeral for Han Solo, and I think that's very fitting.
I think he got the Viking's funeral when the whole planet caught on fire when it exploded.
Ooh. There are people who actually are claiming, oh, he lived. They're not going to kill off Harrison Ford. I'm like, he's the deadest that anyone's ever been dead.
he kind of became part of the sun that
Yep.
happened when the planet imploded.
Yeah, they're not gonna be embalming his body and displaying it anytime soon. So also, yeah, I agree. It's so cool that they did take that risk because you're right. Everybody says J.J. Abrams, what a loser. Like he just rehashed everything. He's just a big Star Wars fan. But Chris Stuckman, the U reviewer, who I really like, he had a good point about this. He's saying, yeah, he was saying, it's actually, given how big of a fan J.J. Abrams is known to be of Star Wars, it is showing remarkable restraint that he did not make Han, Luke, and Leia the main characters in this movie. He had full access to Mark Hamill, especially Mark Hamill, him being the protagonist of the originals. Full access to him. He was ready to come on and do anything they wanted for the movie, and he wrote the screenplay and said, no, Luke is going to be only in it in the last second in a very key but absent role. And that's restraint. Say what you will, but we got a very restrained director doing something that's best for the future of the franchise, not just reveling in the past.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So my last scene that I'm thankful for, it's maybe an obvious one to people that like Force Awakens, but for me, it's the flashback, Rey's flashback that she has in Maz Kanata's cantina. The commentary is coming out for the movie. JJ calls it a force back. That's the way they refer to this thing now. And I like it for a lot of reasons. It's so visceral. I love how Rey is hearing herself crying in the cantina. Like she hears her own cries when she was younger and then follows them and sees the vision. It's sort of those Star Wars like self-fulfilling things. Anakin having a vision of Padme crying, which he later causes. It's stuff like that. And then also the nostalgia and the legendizing, if that's a word, that it gives the original series, because the original trilogy, Rey is an awesome new character, and a lot of the scenes are about her. Like we see something at the Jedi Temple. Maybe she was there. We see her being left on Jakku. She was definitely there. And then, like all good Force visions, we see a glimpse in the future. We see her running into Kylo Ren and like being startled, and you have some foreshadowing. But my favorite stuff is just she literally at one point is transported physically to the corridor of Cloud City where Luke and Vader have that very important confrontation in Empire. And I guess I love the idea that Empire Strikes Back, one of my favorite scenes in one of my favorite films ever, is so important to the Force that somebody outside of it and just learning about it could touch an object and be transported into a scene in my favorite movie. And it's not just like really obvious, like Luke and Vader wailing on each other. Oh, there's Luke. It's just the hallway. It's just subtle. It's like even just this little place that they fought for a second has such importance to the Force now. It just gives this epicness to everything. Star Wars is just so epic now, That's my last pick.
Yeah, I think that's a solid choice. I like what you said about it being like basically like the events of Star Wars are so big that they had an impact on the Force itself. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying about like the coolest things in Force Awakens are the things that make the other things retroactively better. And it's almost like meta in a way that like Star Wars has become such a big cultural thing for us that like now it's even reflected in the new movies that the events of the old were so important and so impacting that they've affected the Force itself. So I think that's kind of cool. My favorite thing with the Force back is that it is still new. Like while it is like it has all those things from the past movies and past events, it was an entirely new thing for Star Wars to do. And like I always appreciate like how the Force Awakens incorporated things that were entirely new into Star Wars. So I'm thankful that they went with that.
Yes.
Something new, something impacting, something mythic like that.
Yeah, and also you have the prophecy that's revealed in the prequels that Anakin is going to bring balance to the Force. And then we learn, he in fact becomes Darth Vader, and possibly, he redeems himself in the end, but maybe Luke is the one to really be bringing balance to the Force because he brings his father back. But then we know all of those events led Luke to be a stupid idiot and not tell Kylo Ren, hey, here's who your grandpa was. Kylo Ren tears the Force down more. And it's like, we still don't know. We still might have not even met the Skywalker that's going to set everything right. You know, like it's every trilogy is like, is a push, is an ebb and a flow to the dark side and the light side. It's like, it's maybe Star Wars will continue because that prophecy will never really truly settle because it's like a yin and yang forever and ever.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. And I think that's closer to reality than something like having like eternal peace. Yay, we're at balance forever. Really, like balance in real life, it isn't like the Libra being perfectly aligned with each other. It's things going up and down in that sort of yin. Yeah, I think yin yang is a good image for that. And it reminds me of there's a book that I've been meaning to read that a YouTuber was like describing, and I believe it's called The Origin of War. And basically it's this historical piece, and the thesis of it is that war is the default state of humanity. And like we usually think of war as like this calamity that happens, like everything's peaceful and then war happens and it's awful and then we're back to peace because that's normal. When really he argues it's the opposite, that it's war is sort of like this awful thing that's always happening because it's just what happens when multiple people struggle with each other. And that peace is the outlier. That peace happens because people so fight for it and cling to it, and then war is inevitable again. And so I like what you're saying, that there is sort of an ebb and flow, and that we're like, I feel like the trilogies are sort of us watching the Force get balanced. Like it goes between the trilogies, the Force goes wildly out of balance, and then maybe the trilogy is about it being put back into balance. But then everything's a cycle. So while we love our peace now and like we cling to it and we love it and we take so much joy out of it, it's only a matter of time until the darkness swings back in again. You have to fight it off again. Sort of, and cycles are a big thing in myth. Star Wars is myth. That's my big old spiel. So yeah, I like what you're saying. Ebb and flow.
That is really cool. And on a storytelling level, that doesn't necessarily mean that I want and am excited for them to keep constructing a republic and then having it be overthrown by an empire, back to a republic, back to an empire. I don't think it has to be so literal because that could start getting very repetitive. But I do think that by the end of this trilogy, if the government is reinstated and things are okay, if a challenge could emerge in future trilogies that still challenges the Force and possibly the Skywalkers in just as profound of a way, but that doesn't necessarily involve a rebellion or an empire. Those things can happen on any scale, internally, with one character, with many characters, inside of the Force, things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the struggle between like, the technological and the dark side versus like the free and the more spiritually connected that happens in Star Wars, you can put that in almost any scenario and still execute. Back to what we're saying with execution, you could do it in no matter what the setting. So I'm excited to see what goes on with it, and I'm thankful that we have such a great story that we can delve into every single week like this.
I'm also thankful for stuffing.
I'm thankful for turkey and gravy and lightsabers and BB-8.
Yeah, cutting turkey with a lightsaber.
Can you only imagine? It would cook it right for you. You'd never have to put it in the oven.
Oh my! You could do it with the live animal. You could just cook it right there.
Yeah, I guess that's one way. Ewoks.
We're back full circle. We're talking about cycles. We're back to the.
We're talking about cycles. Back to the Ewok turkeys. That's how we're gonna wrap it up.
You've heard about the book that says the natural state of human beings is eating an Ewok, and peace is just a brief intermission from eating Ewoks.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening in to Tosche Station. This was a fun episode. Hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving, happy Black Friday, happy holidays, all that good stuff. Be thankful for Star Wars. Be thankful for us. Be thankful for yourselves. We're all having a good time. I don't know where I was going with there.
You don't have to be going anywhere because I'm thankful for that. We're spontaneous. Yes. Have a good holiday week, everybody. eat a lot of food, and like Star Wars a lot. And Rogue One is coming out quite soon, Alex. It's just a matter of a few weeks now. So once that comes out, I'd say we should devote a few episodes to it in different ways. You know, like it's not every day that a new Star Wars movie comes out and we get to talk about it. So we could have a review. We could have episodes talking about specific characters in focus, theories coming out of the movie. Yeah, do you like the sound of that?
Oh yeah, I definitely like the sound of that. I hope you guys aren't sick of Rogue One because you're probably going to be getting a lot of it in the coming
Yes.
months. Just saying.
Yeah. All right, but that's it. Alex, do you want to say anything before we close out?
No, just like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Keep checking out the young folks. Lots of cool stuff always happening there, and hope to see you again.
All right, everybody. May the force be with you.